In a small African village surrounded by golden fields, there lived a boy named Juma. Juma was clever, strong, and quick with his words, but he had one flaw. He was unkind. His parents, hardworking farmers, had gifted him a goat named Kofi when he turned 10. "Take care of Kofi and he will take care of you," his father had said. But Juma never listened. When his parents were home, he fed Kofi fresh leaves and even pretended to stroke his fur. But as soon as they left for the fields, his kindness vanished. He tugged the poor goat's ears, tied his rope too tight, and sometimes left him without food. "He's just a goat," Juma would say, laughing. One day when no one was around, Juma grew impatient. He had been sent to fetch water, but was too lazy to go alone. He tied Kofi to a wooden cart and forced him to pull it. "Move faster, lazy thing," he scolded, smacking Kofi's back. The goat struggled, panting under the weight. His legs wobbled, but Juma didn't care. Suddenly, the cart hit a rock and Juma tumbled into the dirt. Furious, he turned to Kofi, raising his hand to strike. But then, a voice, "You lay a hand on me again, you will regret it." Juma's breath caught. His heart pounded. He stumbled back, eyes wide with fear. Did Kofi just speak? "If you lay a hand on me again, you will regret it." Juma's breath caught. His heart pounded. He stumbled back, eyes wide with fear. "Did Kofi just speak?" Kofi tilted his head. "And yet, I speak." Juma took a step back. His legs felt weak. "This is a trick. Someone is hiding." He turned in circles, expecting a friend or a prankster to jump out, but there was no one. Kofi stomped his hoof. "You have been cruel, Juma. Your heart is heavy with selfishness." Juma's chest tightened. He wanted to run. He wanted to scream, but he couldn't move. The goat's voice dropped to a whisper. "A great punishment is coming." Juma swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" But Kofi said nothing more. The air around them felt heavier, thicker, like a storm was about to break. Juma didn't know what was worse, the warning or the silence that followed. Juma didn't tell anyone about Kofi's words. Who would believe him? But something had changed. The wind whispered his name when he walked alone. The trees seemed to lean in when he passed. Even the village dogs, once friendly, now stared at him with unblinking eyes. And then there were the dreams. At night, Juma saw shadows moving in the fields. He heard a voice calling from the darkness. How you treat others when no one is watching reveals your true character. He woke up sweating, heart racing. The next morning, he hurried to Kofi's pen. The goat stood calmly, chewing on some leaves. Juma hesitated. "Are you still mad at me?" Kofi didn't answer. Juma let out a shaky breath. Maybe he imagined it all. Maybe he had just been tired. The sun blazed high, and Juma tried to ignore the uneasy feeling in his chest. He went about his chores, but his hands were unsteady. When he reached the well to fetch water, he felt something watching him. He turned. Nothing, just the open fields and the distant trees. He shook his head. "I'm just scaring myself." But when he returned home, something was wrong. Kofi's pen was empty. Juma's stomach dropped. "Kofi?" No answer. The gate was locked. No footprints in the dirt. It was as if the goat had vanished. A cold wind blew through the yard, and with it a voice. "Your test begins now." Juma searched the village, but no one had seen Kofi. The goat had disappeared without a trace. That night, Juma barely slept. He tossed and turned, the weight of guilt pressing down on him. And when he woke up, he wasn't in his bed. He was outside, in Kofi's pen, tied to a wooden post. His heart pounded. His hands were not hands anymore. They were hooves. His scream echoed across the village, but no one heard him, because to them, Juma was just a goat. Juma panicked, stumbling on shaky legs. His once powerful voice had become a weak bleat. The villagers walked past him, unaware. Even his own parents didn't recognize him. He tried to call out, but only "Ma" came from his lips. Kofi was nowhere to be found. Was this his punishment, to live as a goat? Days passed. Juma experienced the world from a goat's eyes. He was ignored, forgotten, treated as nothing. He now understood hunger, fear, helplessness. Tears streamed down his furry face. "I'm sorry," he thought, "I should have been kind." And then the wind whispered back, "Kindness must be proven." One evening, a group of boys approached, laughing, mocking. One grabbed a stick. "Let's play with this goat." Juma's heart pounded. They were just like him. And now he was on the other side. He closed his eyes. "Please, no." Then a voice boomed. "Enough." The wind howled. The ground trembled. The boys scattered in fear. And when Juma opened his eyes, he had hands again. He was human. The return of Kofi, Juma gasped, touching his face, his arms. He was back, and in front of him stood Kofi smiling. "You have learned," Juma fell to his knees. "I'm sorry I was wrong," Kofi nodded. "Then your punishment ends." And with that, the goat vanished into the wind. Juma never forgot what happened. He became the kindest boy in the village, treating every person and animal with respect, because he had learned one thing: how you treat others when no one is watching reveals your true character. And